morning, good evening, and good afternoon. To start off, today is November the 16th, and we are happy to present our Intercontinental CISO Forum. Last week, we had our CISO Forum Canada, where we had speakers, content, and attendees from all over Canada and all over the world. This week, we have our Intercontinental CISO Forum. We have Africa, the continent of Africa, the continent of Middle East, Asia, Latin America, and the Caribbean. We'll be taking a voyage and a journey down different continents around the world, exploring the cybersecurity ecosystem. Where did this idea come up from? Well, it was in March 2020 where we held our Canadian Women in Cybersecurity event. It was our last physical event of the year. And right around that time, the epidemic that has hit us all around the world had showed its face, and events no longer existed, the physical side. In May, the team at CyberX put on an event, a virtual event, where we explored and had companies, organizations, sponsors, partners from all over the world log in. And one of the things we discovered as a team was this bridge that has been built because of something that has happened in the world from a global standpoint, has opened up the ability for us to share, connect, and start those dialogues that we haven't been able to. One of the dialogues I connected and shared with and started was with an amazing person by the name of Gilbert, all the way in Africa. I just sent him a message, said hello, and from hello, it took us on a really fun journey where we're here today. Gilbert is responsible for the Africa Cyber Defense Forum, an amazing organization. Gilbert, welcome.
Thank you, Mahdi, for the wonderful introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, heads of states and leaders of society and leaders of business, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you're joining us from. Today is a wonderful day because we are bringing together continents, we're connecting Africa, and we're showing Africa to the world. As Mahdi has quite clearly articulated, that the pandemic hit and it has had an impact on our society. With the impact this has had on our society, we have also seen the increase in the cyber threats, attacks that are targeting hospitals, businesses that continue to grow. In this spirit, we all understand that cybercrime has become a global challenge that needs collaboration, and it also needs a concerted effort of both parties. Following the same spirit, myself, as the founder and CEO of Africa Cyber Defense Forum, which is a continental platform for public-private cooperation in cyber defense and cybersecurity in Africa, we had a conversation with siberX, an amazing organization in Canada, and we discussed and we believe that time has come for us to take advantage of the pandemic as well, to be able to connect both worlds, connect both brightest of minds. Those are the front line of cybersecurity, cyber defense, both in Canada, Africa, and other parts of the world. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure to today here be able to be with you and bring this to fronts and breadths of minds together. A latest study shows that cybercrime, or the illicit cybercrime economy, has grown to be almost over $1.5 trillion. In GDP terms, you're looking at an economy that could be equivalent to the economy of Russia. And that shows the magnitude of the impact of cybercrime has to the global economy. With that, you notice that institutions, governments, and businesses face this challenge. And as Africa Cyber Defense Forum, which is a global, which is a continental continental platform of collaboration between private and public, we know that Africa cannot now be at the sidelines. We have to bring Africa to the conversation. And we have to be part and parcel of that conversation. The conversation that brings both of us together, brings the best of our minds to share in such a platform of today. During this Africa Intercontinental CISO Forum focused on Africa, you will interact with different speakers from amazing countries like Mauritius, people from South Africa, Egypt, Cote d'Ivoire, Kenya, Nigeria, amongst others. As we go along the day, you will interact in different sessions like cyber deterrence. You will see discussions and conversations on things like security in the cloud. What are the challenges? You will also see conversations that touch on inclusivity and diversity in the workforce. You will also be able to go in a journey where you will also be able to have conversations on digital transformation and data security. All this amongst many others. As well, you will also be able to enjoy fine African music from different countries in our beautiful continent. Ladies and gentlemen, without collaboration, we cannot achieve anything. And in the same spirit, we have seen great innovations come from countries like Israel, for example, Europe and Middle East. And we believe that Africa itself or developing countries cannot just be consumers of technology. They cannot be passive consumers, but they must be at the front lines of innovation. In this spirit, under the Africa Cyber Defense Forum, we have launched several programs that we continue to launch, like Cyber Olympics that brings different breasts of breeds and minds across the continent to be able to compete in gamified platforms, to be able to train the best of minds in cybersecurity and cyber defense. We have launched, and we are equally launching programs like Africa Cyber Fellowship, Defense Fellowship programs that will be able to train the best of minds in the continent to be able to get scholarships and train in cyber defense. We have programs that we are launching like Africa Cyber Resilience Program that we believe will go hand in hand with establishing and helping different African countries to set up the national CERTs and CERTs to be able to build the capacity to help us build and have a more secure continent as far as cybercrime is concerned and fight the pandemic of cybercrime. As well, we are also having the Startup Hub. In the Startup Hub, this is where we invite different investors who are looking to invest in different African-sized startups that focus on cybersecurity, so that Africa doesn't just consume, but Africa also should be able to export its technology to the world. And this, in the same spirit, is what we are pursuing at Africa Cyber Defense Forum, where in 2020 June, we were able to bring over 500 participants across the world to share in a virtual platform during the pandemic. And we had amazing organizations like Interpol, we had amazing organizations like Afrinic, and many others that were able to collaborate and share in a wonderful platform. Continuing this same spirit, we believe that such a collaboration gives us an opportunity to be able to do amazing work and be able to collaborate more in the future. As I close my remarks, I would like to thank Mahdi from siberX for his great leadership. I would also like to thank him and his team for the great coordination. Even in tough times, they have been able to be there in sleepless nights. I can not say more, but to thank you all. I would also like to thank the team at Africa Cyber Defense Secretariat led by Jerry Richards and the team for the great work and coordination and the sleepless nights that they have done to ensure that today becomes a success. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to wish you all a wonderful day full of learning, sharing, collaboration, and cooperation. And I wish that we can be able to continue this conversation going forward between Africa, Canada, and other continents so that Africa becomes a continent that can also be a success and not just a consumer of technology, but a producer of technologies and export it to the world. With those few remarks, I want to wish you a wonderful day, and I would like to pass the baton back to Mahdi Raza to introduce our next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Gilbert, for those very powerful words. We look forward to 2021 and how we can build that beautiful bridge of not only learning, sharing ideas, but also building those friendships. I'd like to now introduce our first keynote, gentleman by the name of Osama Hijji, who is a CISO, InfoSec, and cybersecurity evangelist, instructor, speaker, blogger. I can go on, but I'd rather let him fill you in on all the amazing things he does. Osama, take it away.
Thank you, Mahdi, and thank you, Gilbert, for the introduction. My name, as Mahdi said, I'm Osama Hijji, or Osama Hijji, as we pronounce it in Egypt. I'm the technical director for a system integrator in Egypt named IP Protocol, as well the Group Chief Information Security Officer for GEA Group. I have been working in the field of cybersecurity for the last 15 years in multiple domains, including in telecom, in health. I'm here today to talk with you about one of the recently, I don't want to say recently, but one of the most discussed topics in cybersecurity on the governance level, cyber deterrence. But before I do that, I would like to first thank siberX and Africa Cyber Defense Forum for giving me this opportunity. I'm really honored to be among you today, and I wanted to give two tributes. One of them is to the cybersecurity people who are defending day and night everyone on the planet. They are defending their companies, they are defending the information, the personal identifiable information of people. They are doing an amazing job. They don't get really medals for fighting hackers. I mean, okay, there is a couple of movies about hackers themselves, but there are rarely movies about people working in the domain of cybersecurity. We don't get really the same level of acknowledgement the police or the military gets. But to me, at least, cybersecurity people are some of the unknown heroes of this planet, and I really would like to thank them all for the effort they are all doing to defend everyone on this planet, and probably no one knows that. Another tribute I want to make is to the continent of Africa. According to science, our kind, the Homo sapiens, started here in Africa. So in a way, everyone I'm talking to today, whether he is in the Americas, in Europe, or in Asia, is actually an African, because our kind, the humankind, the Homo sapiens who exist today, actually started here. And I hope that this thought bring you the spirit of collaboration we want to reach to advance cybersecurity, not just in Africa, but in the whole world. So this being said, let me jump in the subject of today's presentation, the cyber deterrence. And I want to start today by explaining what is cyber deterrence. So in order to understand what is cyber deterrence, first we need to understand what is deterrence on its own. So cyber deterrence is one of the most studied topics in cybersecurity, yet it is one of the least understood phenomena. And in order to understand it, today we will go through what is deterrence in the first place, and then we will move forward to what is cyber deterrence. Deterrence is actually preventing aggression. This is really an important point about deterrence, because in cybersecurity, we tend to be entangled all the day, all the year, in reacting to aggression, not preventing it. In the first place, we want to prevent attacks from happening instead of letting them happening and doing effort in trying to defend against the attacks and react to these attacks. What if these attacks doesn't happen in the first place? What if we have some way to prevent them from happening? So deterrence is actually, its main objective is to prevent aggression from happening. How? By putting in the mind of the potential adversary, whomever he is, a hacker, an attacker, someone who makes you malware, that the risk of the action outweigh the benefits. So whatever that you are going to gain from the act of aggression is outweighed by the risks of doing that action. That's exactly the mindset behind the nuclear bomb. It's not a very good example, but it's the most known example of deterrence. So countries which are nuclear equipped, that's exactly the point from having a nuclear bomb. When you develop a nuclear bomb, you're not really expecting to use it. Okay, some countries did, but at least most of those who develop nuclear weapons, they never used it. The whole point from having a nuclear weapon is that you are sending a message to whoever thinks of attacking you, that attacking you really, no matter what the benefit out of it is, outweighs the risk of doing so. There is a very destructive response that can probably wipe the aggressor from existence, that can happen in case of the attack. So no one thinks really of attacking a country that is nuclear equipped. The same goes to the cyber deterrence. In the cyber deterrence, the goal is to prevent cyber incidents. That's exactly the goal of cyber deterrence. Cyber deterrence does not really tell you how to respond to cyber incidents, because in the first place, if it exists, there won't be any cyber incidents. How do we do this? Same way as deterrence, by putting in the mind of the threat actors that the risks of a cyber attack outweigh the benefits. So we're trying to send a message out there to whoever thinking of attacking us, of hacking us, whether we are an enterprise or a state, that attacking us is too risky for you. If you do this, you are putting yourself at a risk, I won't say at a risk, at an imminent danger. How do we achieve this? Let me first make a small comparison between what cyber deterrence is and what cyber security is. Cyber deterrence is a proactive approach. It aims at preventing security incidents. Cyber security is actually a reactive approach. It aims at managing security incidents. So in the case of cyber deterrence, basically an incident shouldn't be happening, or to be realistic, let's say that a significant portion of the incidents will not happen. Another portion will still happen, and we will still need cybersecurity reactive approach, but at least we have decreased the load or the effort a state or an organization need to do to handle those efforts and focus more on proactive approaches to defend itself. In cyber deterrence, we are focused on the attacker rather than the attack. In the cybersecurity concept, we are actually focused on preventing attacks or on defending against attacks. We are not really thinking of the attacker, the person behind the attack. And that's one of the big problems with the way we are conducting, with the way we are treating our security today, that most of the controls we find in enterprises, even on state level, these controls are aimed at defending, reacting to attacks, but they are not really aimed at least knowing who the attacker is. And some of the attackers, they did enjoy, and some of them, and most of them actually, they are still enjoying the fact that they did attack after attack, incident after incident, and they are still there thinking of other ways how to hack your enterprises and your states and how to attack them, and they haven't really been touched for years. In cyber deterrence, we are not thinking really of the attack, we are rather thinking of the attacker. In cybersecurity, we are focused on defending the infrastructure. Again, we are in the reactive mode. In cyber deterrence, we are not really focused on defending the infrastructure. We are focused on fending the attacker infrastructure. So in some respect here, we need to understand that the attacker is not just a person. The attacker has his own infrastructure. It could be botnets, it could be his own servers, domains, tools. In cyber deterrence, we are focused on this, discovering and actually taking down the attacker infrastructure rather than defending our own infrastructure. And finally come the point of the use of tools. What tools do we use in cyber deterrence? We use actually offensive security and deceptive cyber security technologies, while in cyber security we use defensive and detective cyber technologies. So cyber security is really about detection and response. Cyber deterrence is more about offense and deception. Cybersecurity requires low investment. It's not as expensive as cyber deterrence, I have to admit that. And consequently as well, although it doesn't really take a lot. I mean, this is of course something very relative. I mean, when I say low investment, I'm sure the CISOs, when they go to the CEO and request any kind of money, it's always perceived as too much. But I'm comparing here the cost of cyber security controls and cyber deterrence controls. Cyber security controls tend to be less expensive. However, they will cause a high incident rate because they are not really focused on fending the attackers. So they just keep attacking us, and all we can do is to be the punching bag that receives the hit. But we have to be a strong punching bag so the attacker doesn't really break us. In cyber deterrence, yes, you will have to invest a little bit more. And that's basically because you cannot omit cyber security controls. You have actually to have both. However, if you invest in cyber deterrence, you will have a lower security incident rate. So you are not really entangled all the time in responding to incidents, and you have the time to focus on more strategic, on more business or state affairs oriented matters. So how cyber deterrence is done? Now, I mean, we cannot really use nuclear bombs in cyberspace. So how can we implement cyber deterrence? And when we think of cyber deterrence, we have to differentiate between two kinds of enterprises. We have to think of the cyber deterrence capability a state needs, and we have to think as well of the cyber deterrence capability an enterprise need. They are not going to be the same. I'm not expecting from enterprises, for example, to go and attack the attackers. States can do that. There are actually at least 4 states in the world, without mentioning names, that have this capability. Out of cyber deterrence, they go and they attack whoever who tries to attack them in the cyberspace, and they are even taking this to the military domain as well. But enterprises cannot do that. So let's have a look on how we can do that. On state level, any country who want to have cyber deterrence need to establish actually a national cybersecurity body. That's like the NSA in the United States, for example, the National Security Agency, an institution which is in charge of cybersecurity in this country. And this institution must be in charge of cyber offense. They have offensive security capability. They can actually conduct a cyber attack against another party. They should be in charge of cyber defense as well, defending the critical information infrastructure of this country and cyber intelligence, because out there in the cyberspace, there are malicious players, threat actors, trying to conduct attacks of various types on the critical information infrastructure of any state in the world. So it's a good idea to have cyber intelligence about these things prior to their happening, at least to get ready from cyber defense perspective, and maybe actually use cyber offense against those actors in a preemptive way before they actually perform their attacks. And that takes us to the cyber deterrence level. So if I have proper cyber intelligence, I know who's going to attack my critical infrastructure. Maybe I don't need to wait until they do so and be in the cyber defense mode. Maybe I can just go and attack their infrastructure, disable it, make it unusable, so they don't actually perform an attack against me. On enterprise level, what an enterprise need is a security operations center. Security operation centers are traditionally in charge of detection and response, according to NIST cybersecurity framework. However, one of the things we need the SOC to be in charge of in order to offer a cyber deterrence capability to an enterprise is definitely cyber intelligence as well, which is one of the things SOCs right now do. Not all of them, but I would say a significant portion of the security operations centers right now, they are not just doing detection and response, but they are receiving as well threat intelligence and using threat intelligence to strengthen their defenses. The thing I really want us to add to the enterprise is the deception technology. And we will talk about how deception technology works in the context of cyber deterrence. Why do you have the NATO, the League of Arab States, and the African Union on the right side of this slide? One of the things in Africa in particular, we need to understand that having a body or an institution in charge of cybersecurity should be probably a target for the whole African continent, and consequently, probably it is best done through an institution like the African Union. We need all of us to collaborate on our cyber defense and on our cyber deterrence as well. North America and Europe understood this concept long ago when they launched the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, that probably defense in general is a collective matter, so it can be really deterrent, and that's the very point of the NATO organization. That's the very point of having an alliance. It's deterrence. It's not defense. I don't know. There is small countries in Europe like Luxembourg. I don't think Luxembourg can defend itself against a military attack. However, Luxembourg is part of Europe. It's part of the NATO. If you attack them, you attacked all the NATO. So no one, no matter how small Luxembourg is, would think of attacking it, no matter how vulnerable it seems, will attack it, because it's part of something much bigger called NATO. NATO is a deterrent control. It's something that is there to make you not think of attacking any country in Europe, be it small or big, because this country is not alone. You can take this same concept to the cyberspace. If there is a cybersecurity institution that is defending all African countries, that's a very strong message to whoever out there trying to attack any information infrastructure in any African country, be it small or big, because he is about to face an institution that is basically funded and supported by an entire continent. So normally it should have means, it should be a strong organization. The same goes to the North African countries, which belong not just to Africa, they belong as well to the Arab Circle. And there is another institution like the African Union, it's the League of Arab States. The same concept can be applied through the League of Arab States as well, to have a cybersecurity institution in charge of cyber offense, defense, and intelligence for all the Arab countries or for all the African countries. I think actually we need to have both, and we need these institutions to collaborate. I mean, we are living in a world where there is really bodies for policing the planet, like the Interpol, but you don't really have something similar in the cybersecurity, and many countries still doesn't have cybersecurity laws, data protection acts and data criminal acts. Institutions like this could help actually in mitigating this problem in collaboration, exchanging criminals, enforcing actually actions on outside your legislative perimeter in other countries. So cyber deterrence as well on state level is established not only through the cyber capability, but as well it could be through military capability. And one of the things that happened recently, it's a sinister example, but it happened indeed. Hamas, which is have a very strong cybersecurity, so-called Israeli Defense Force. And in return, the IDF did not respond in a cyber manner. They actually attacked the headquarters of Hamas with jet fighters. They bombed it. So out of cyber deterrence, probably you need to have not just the offensive capability to respond against threat actor just in the cyberspace, but probably as well a military response. That's on the state level. That's how you send the strong message that your country, your state, is not going to tolerate disruptive cyber attacks to the critical information infrastructure of your country. Israel did that. They felt that the attacks of Hamas are very disruptive to their own state. So they responded not just in a cyber manner, they responded in a military manner. On enterprise level, of course, you're not going to bomb your enemies. You cannot do that. That's actually unacceptable. But you need to establish a deceptive capability. The point from a deceptive capability here is going to be explained later. It's not just about luring the attackers into traps. It's actually about convincing them that what they are doing, again, the benefit from it outweigh the risks, and we will explain this later on. One of the most important things about cyber deterrence as well is to establish a data criminal act within a state, and an effective and quick legal prosecution and trial of internal threat actors, at least. If cybercrime is punished, however, in 10 years or in 5 years, like in many countries, when you perform a cyber attack, you are detected years later, you are prosecuted years after that, and you are punished even years after that. When justice is this slow, when there is no law, basically, and if there is a law, it is very, very, very slow in application, that doesn't deter anyone. That's actually an invitation for committing crime. And the same goes for enterprise level. Enterprises need to have cyber crimes included in their legal departments prosecution in the way. I mean, they really need not just to put some firewalls to defend them against cyber attacks. And when they detect cyber attacks, they really need to investigate who performed these cyber attacks and give this information to their legal department to initiate a legal process. And they need to do this very quickly. They shouldn't actually wait for this. One of the examples of cyber deterrence that happened recently is the Twitter hack. If anyone has been following the Twitter hack, it was a SIM swap attack. It happened exactly on the 17th of July 2020. On the 31 of July 2020, exactly 14 days later, just in 2 weeks, the FBI in the United States, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and the National Crime Association in the United Kingdom arrested all the perpetrators. They were 3 young men, and it didn't take more than 2 weeks to press charges against them, to identify who they were, what did they do. When justice is this swift and quick, anyone who thinks of performing a similar attack in the future is deterred. Of course, talking about the enterprise level, when we talk legal about the enterprise level, it's highly tied to whatever laws and mechanisms you have in the state. So an enterprise cannot really be swift legally on its own. It is dependent on the state in which it's located. And in many cases in Africa, we don't really have yet, in many of the countries, data criminal acts and data privacy acts, and consequently prosecuting someone for cybercrime is not really that easy. So the alternative for this is to actually coordinate with the bodies in the country responsible for cybersecurity, like the CERT, the Computer Emergency and Response Team. And finally, in order to implement cyber deterrence, we need to include it in the cyber strategy of the state. We need to think of it on the level of the state decision makers, of how we can include it in our foreign affairs policies as well. If we are being attacked all the time by a country which we have trade relations with, maybe we need to consider putting some penalties on them because they are not really doing a good job on stopping the hackers on their side. We need to consider how we are going to tackle the harm we are incurring from cyber attacks originating from other states in our foreign affairs policies. That's a way actually of implementing cyber deterrence on a state level. On an enterprise level, we need to consider the same with in the selection of our third parties and in our external affairs as well. Third parties here, I mean, whoever we are dealing with, probably our vendors, which might be selling us technologies that doesn't work, which is anyway something most of the CISOs does consider while they are evaluating technologies. And in our external affairs as well, when you have a multinational company operating in several countries, they need to actually establish some ties, as I explained before, with the CERT and the regulatory authorities of this country, and have some sort of an equal treatment with them. What are the technologies used in cyber deterrence? Now we come to the point of we talked about in the previous slide what type of technologies, how it is implemented actually on the real ground. There are traffic generators that can be used basically I mean, this is something states can use. It's not an enterprise level solution at all because It's basically illegal in most of the countries, but a state institution can use this as part of its cyber offensive capability. So they can use actually volumetric traffic generators to conduct DOS attacks on the attackers trying to harm their own critical information infrastructure. And there is many examples of this. There is one here. I really forgot the name, but I will get it in a minute. On the enterprise level, this is really useful, and it's really useful as well on the state level. Network and endpoint honeypots. So probably everyone here knows what honeypots is. I will just go over it quickly. A honeypot simply is a deception technology. It's a computer that mimic another computer you have in your infrastructure. The computers or a server, essentially, not really a computer. It has really to look similar to a real objective, to a real target, and it has to look appealing. So it has to be to have vulnerabilities in it. It has to have data that looks like real data in it, and it should look real. What's the point from honeypots? Honeypots are actually the control an enterprise and the state institution as well will use to convince a threat actor that the risks from the attack outweighs the benefit. How? Basically, it is luring the attacker into a fake target rather than attacking the real target. Because, as I explained before, the honeypots looks very, very, very similar to the real targets. It's exactly like the fake tanks made of food or balloons that the military use to lure jet fighters to bomb them instead of bombing the real targets, the real tanks or the real military equipment. In that way, the honeypots are actually protecting your infrastructure or the information infrastructure by diverting the attacks, but it's not really convincing. That's not the part where the attacker, not the attack, will start thinking that attacking your organization, the benefits from attacking your organization outweighs the risks. Where is this part? This part is in their deceptive role. So when you start attacking a honeypot, basically you start revealing which vulnerabilities you will use in an attack. You are revealing what are the tools you are using. You are revealing as an attacker what is your infrastructure. Probably you are revealing your identity as well as an attacker during the time you are attacking the honeypot. And then probably while you are attacking the honeypot or after attacking the honeypot, that's the worst case for an attacker, you will realize you have been into a trap that's not real. This is not the real target you wanted to attack. And you revealed your mechanism of attack, the tools of attack, the infrastructure of attack, and you revealed yourself for the defenders. For any attacker, falling in this trap is a huge risk that outweighs any benefit from the reconnaissance operation or the attack operation he was conducting, because he doesn't really know whether he is attacking a fake or a real target. And by attacking a fake target, he revealed everything about himself. Or let's not say everything, but the majority of, again, as I said, his infrastructure, his techniques, probably his identity as well. So now he gained nothing, absolutely nothing. He attacked the fake target and he lost lots of information about himself revealed to the institution defending itself using honeypots. And using this information, this institution can prosecute him and can actually ask a state to take his infrastructure down, and he didn't actually manage to get anything out of his attack. That's how honeypots can actually be cyber deterrence control. There is as well the offensive security tools like vulnerability scanners, exploit kits, and there is a list of the top 10 security tools enterprise can use in OWASP. I'm not going to go over that. already explained painfully on OWASP. If you are a state actor, this is not for enterprise, you might actually consider having electronic countermeasure and electronic countermeasure platforms. On the right side, you see probably a jet fighter. That's the EF-18G Growler. It's a jet fighter designed and produced by United States, and it has only one role. It's to perform electronic warfare and electronic attacks. And it's claimed that the EF-18G, it's called the Growler, is capable of hacking into your opponent networks. So that's a jet fighter you have, and its real purpose is to hack your opponent's information infrastructure, whether it's an information infrastructure that is military or that is civilian. If you are a state, maybe you need to consider having such a technology within your armed forces or within your institutions. What type of professionals do you need in order to have cyber deterrence? Basically, all the professionals you need to have will be part of your security operations center. Some of those are going to be part of as well of your IT, depending on whether you are a state institution or you are an enterprise institution. So in state institutions, you probably need the same skill of network stress testers, because those professionals know how to conduct volumetric dose you need as well tier 3 threat hunters. And the threat hunters are usually the security admins of honeypots. The threat hunters does not use just honeypots in order to lure attackers and understand what they are trying to do in the honeypots. They use as well the sandboxes, and the sandboxes nowadays come as part of the advanced threat protection solutions in order as well to test the tools, or which is usually a malware used by attackers. So tier 3 threat hunters are both your honeypots and sandboxes. What type of processes you need within your security operations center to have cyber deterrence? Basically, you need the regular incident response process that you have in any SOC. You need a threat intelligence process. That's really important because, and we're not here talking just about the usual IOCs, the indicators of compromise you get to develop use cases on your SIEM to detect the attack. You need as well threat intelligence about the attackers trying to stage attacks against you, whether you are a state or an enterprise or actually an entire field like banking or teleco or oil and gas. You need to have threat intelligence about what is the early warnings, what is happening ahead. Because if you have threat intelligence, you can actually take a preemptive, not a proactive, a preemptive action against the attackers. Take down their infrastructure, whether this is mostly done through states, or at least ready your controls for defending this attack. You need the threat hunting process. This is something that is really not existent in all the security operation centers nowadays. Most of the security operation centers, they have just an incident response process. Those who matured, they have a threat intelligence process They know how to handle threat intelligence, how to extract indicators of compromise out of the threat intelligence process, and how to transform those indicators of compromise into use cases they will use in their SAM to detect attacks. However, threat hunting process, no, there is no process. Many does have the people for threat hunting, but they don't have a clear process, and not having the process actually diminish the value of the threat hunting people you have in the SOC. That's about it, folks, for the cyber deterrence presentation. I took, I think, exactly the 30 minutes I was supposed to have for this presentation. I thank you for the time and for attending the presentation, and we would be having shortly a break, I believe, after this presentation, 10 or 15 minutes, and then we will have a panel discussion where you can actually raise any questions you have about this presentation. Thank you very much, and we will resume after the break.